Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pietri. I'm from the South African Depression Anxiety Group. I'm one of the friendly faces behind NPOwer. We will be starting shortly. I'm just going to give it another few minutes just for some people to still log on, and then we will get started. Just a reminder to please keep your cameras off just for the time being, and then just audio is also on mute. And then we will get started in a few minutes. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I see we are getting a sudden spike in people joining, so I'm going to give it just another 1 minute and then we can get started. Welcome to the second part of the stress webinar series that NPOwer are hosting. We hope that you guys find the webinar very beneficial today. We are super excited to have all our guests on. Yeah, thank you so much for everybody who's here with us today. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know, my name is Pietri. I'm the project assistant at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. I am delighted to be part of the NPOwer initiative that we run for the, all kinds of community organizations in South Africa. Welcome to the second part of the stress webinar series that we've been hosting. Today we will be talking about managing your own stress. Welcome. I'm super excited to see everybody here. Just a few house rules. Please, could everybody just keep their cameras and audios off during the session? We will make time for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. There will be time to ask all of your questions. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box and I would be happy to present them to the speaker. This is the agenda for today. The welcome and intro, that's me. And then next up, we have Kelly du Plessis, who is from Rare Diseases South Africa. And then after that, we have Dr. Priyal Modi, who's an integrative medical doctor who will be chatting to us about stress and just managing it better for yourself. So without further ado, like I said, welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time. As I usually do with the NPOwer webinars, please take the time, try and be as present as possible. These information sessions are so important, and we would we would encourage everybody just to take the time just so that you can kind of fill your cup and just help yourself not get burnt out in the long run. That's why we are doing these. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker for today. Her name is Kelly du Plessis. She is the CEO and founder of Rare Diseases South Africa. Sorry about that. She is the CEO and founder of Rare Diseases South Africa, which was born out of necessity when her oldest child was diagnosed with Pompe disease. I hope I'm saying that correctly. At 11 months of age, she has dedicated her life and career. She has dedicated her life and career to furthering the plight of those impacted by rare diseases in developing countries. She serves on various boards and committees, which focuses on improving the quality of life for rare disease patients. She has taken rare disease policy and patient advocacy to new heights in South Africa and has presented at various national and international conferences to raise awareness and create a new narrative in terms of treatment and access for rare patients. I'm sure this is just but the tip of the iceberg for Kelly. Kelly is one of our awesome people that we get to work with on a regular basis at SADAG, and we are so excited to have her here today. She's going to be chatting to us about what stress looks like in her organization and just tell us a little bit about how she experiences stress in her organization. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I keep saying that every time that photo gets used, it puts me under pressure because I feel like I never look like that. I'm generally always a lot more frazzled. But thanks very much for the opportunity today to just generally, discuss, I suppose, what is very relevant and real to all of us working in NPOs. So for me, this organization started largely out of personal need of the diagnosis of my own son. So it's not just a job. It translates very heavily into my personal life as well. And I think that is very often the case with a lot of people who particularly found NPOs or, start some form of compassionable, community organizations, etc. I mean, this is not necessarily something that we've all decided to do from a career perspective. Generally, you become passionate about it because you've had some form of personal engagement or interaction with whatever need it is that you're aiming to address. And as a result of that, I think it is very difficult to separate work from your personal life to a large extent. And I think that's one of the things that compounds to the stress. So if you see my little daughter running past in the background, sorry, my kids are on school holiday and we're still working from home. So, for us at Rare Diseases South Africa, we work with a lot of very sick individuals. They battle really big health challenges. And unfortunately, we are in the environment where only 5% of the rare diseases that we treat have a commercial treatments available. So many of these patients go on to pass away. And I think that is a very, very stressful environment to work in all the time, and makes it really, really, you know, I think we're always battling with how to remain positive in such an overwhelming environment. And with that, I think a lot of the time, you know, I don't even think that we've got it right. I think managing stress remains something that we all battle with. What it generally looks like for us is it starts off with bouts of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. And then I think often depression sets in when the overwhelming days and the days where you're feeling anxious just, you know, become more and more and more. And then before you know it, depression is sunk in. And I also think there's a large amount of compassion fatigue, whereby you are continuously giving of yourself from a personal perspective. And as a result of that emotional outpouring of energy, you find yourself not kind of filling up your own cup, so to speak. And as a result from that compassion fatigue, you know, becomes quite evident. So what we've tried to do within rare diseases is, firstly, I mean, everybody that works in our office has a wicked sense of humor. And I think sometimes if you heard the jokes that we make in our office, you'd probably think we need some form of further evaluation, because our sense of humor is dark. But I think that keeps the mood generally light. You know, yes, our jokes are very, very often inappropriate, but I think that is our coping mechanism, and it goes a big way into helping us develop mechanisms to be able to actually just deal with the overwhelm that we deal with, and the very, very dark subject matter that we deal with a lot of the time. So that's one thing that really works well in our office. Then just in terms of our immediate environment and our space, I mean, our office, if anyone's ever been into it, you'll see that it's very, very open and light, and we try to make as much use of natural sunlight as we can. We're very, very flexible in terms of how we do things in our working environment. Often you'll find me sitting on the floor. I work on the floor, particularly if I'm having a really, really bad emotional day. I find it grounds me to some extent to actually just sit on the floor, as opposed to being in a structured environment with a desk and all of that in front of you. So we try make sure that our immediate surroundings is very, very supportive and helpful to our staff, and that we've got areas where you can have a quiet moment. Everybody needs that. Sometimes, you know, working in an open office is very, very helpful in terms of keeping your finger on the pulse and with regards to where things are in terms of projects. But sometimes you actually just need to be able to take a moment and step away from that busyness and just regather yourself. So we've allowed our team to be able to do that. We're not very prescriptive in terms of where and how they work, which I think has been very, very helpful. And we've also, I think it's very, very important to understand your triggers and the things, you know, and it does require a fair amount of self, you know, introspection in terms of identifying like where your boundaries are and what are the things that trigger you negatively, and then learning how to manage those triggers. So we can't obviously manage them forever, like you can't manage everything. And you will still come into contact with them, so you can't avoid them. But if you understand what triggers you and get to the root cause of why it's a trigger for you, it really, really helps you manage your reaction and your response to that stress much better. So, and I think to be sensitive as well to your teammates and the other people working in your organization with regards to what their triggers are, so that you can immediately see, okay, this particular query that's come in, or this particular need, or this particular scenario is not going to be a great match for a particular member of your team because of their personal bias, and then obviously to then try redirect. And I always say, you know, running an NPO is very, very much a team approach. You've got to like kind of spread the stress across everybody to some extent. You can't carry it all on your own, and you've got to jump in and help. And when you see somebody else is drowning or completely overwhelmed, you know, reach out, do what you can to try deviate. And then we take moments, you know, if you need a moment, ask for it and absolutely take it. if today's been just too much for me to deal with, I'm very quick to, I'm the first one to say to my team, look, I'm going home a little bit earlier today, and I just need a break away from it. And even for me, it's difficult, like I said, because I still come home to the same environment in the sense that it's immediately still in our household. But sometimes you do need that break away, and it's okay. And then also to flex up your working area, or whatever your roles and responsibilities are. You know, if you're in the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes mundane. And I think that adds to the darkness. But if you need to switch it up, so if you're handling predominantly this area of the business and it's become too intense for you, take a break away from it, and for a week, maybe ask if you can switch out with somebody else. And you've got to just be flexible about that, because that is how you get the most out of your team. And that's, I think, from my perspective, Shirley, as CEO, it's very important for me that they are willing and wanting to come to work every day, despite the fact that we're not able to save everybody and, you know, do everything that we want to do all the time. And in order for me to be able to get the best out of them, I need to understand and support them in terms of their stress. And then counseling. I can't stress the importance of counseling enough. Putting your hand up, just getting it off your system. Counseling doesn't have to be formal either. You know, I think that there's this perception that counseling has to be like sitting in a therapist's chair telling them, no, counseling can be a quick debrief with a colleague. It can be, you know, just touching base with someone who's got a good understanding of you know, human processing, etc. It doesn't always have to be a very formalized approach. And that certainly does help us. So we've got members within our team that we know that we can go to for certain problems, and you just kind of get it, you know, shrug it off, get it out of your system, have a bit of a external sounding board. And very often you'll walk away from that just feeling a little bit better. So those are some of the things that we do within our office to try and manage and mitigate the stress. Like I said, it certainly doesn't go away, but I think if you can have a sense of humor about it, keep it light and fluffy where possible, and certainly just be very acutely aware of what triggers you, so that you can manage those responses appropriately. I think it really does go a long way in terms of managing stress within the organization. And just to say, you know, to everybody who's listening, I know that you will all be doing your own NPO work to some extent, and this work is hard. If it wasn't, millions of people would be doing it, right? And I think that, like, we don't ever get the recognition, and we never get the thank yous. I mean, like, it's a very thankless job to some extent. You very often don't get appreciated. And I don't think our beneficiaries very often realize the amount of time and energy it gets into make that simple intervention and what it takes from us as individuals. But just a recognition to those out there that are listening today that I certainly do appreciate all the other organizations that are doing fantastic work. And I think we should all be there to help each other too. You know, we're all in the same environment, and it doesn't always have to be competitive. And we should do things like this more, understanding our stress, supporting each other, networking each other, you know, helping each other. If you can make something a little bit easier for a fellow NGO, then we should certainly try and do that. So yeah, Petri, I hope that that's given just a little bit of insight as to what we do, and I'm happy to take any questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to stay for the entire duration of the webinar, but you're more than welcome to share my details if anybody wants to ask anything further.
Thank you so much for that, Kitty. We really do appreciate all of your insight. And thanks again, you know, just from us as the NGO space. I mean, you are sharing your gratitude for all of us, but just you're in the same space, and we appreciate everything that you do also for the space and the sector. So we so appreciate that. And I can 100% agree with you. You know, you're not necessarily going to make stress disappear, but it's the small things that you can do every single day that can just help make it a little bit better. So thank you so much for that. If anyone has a question for Kelly, please let me know, pop it in the chat box, and I can let Kelly know, and we will share your details if that's okay with you at some point. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and being with us today. We so appreciate that. I'm going to just introduce the next speaker. So our second speaker today, who will be here with us for the majority of the session, we are so appreciative that she's here. Dr. Priyal Modi is a qualified medical doctor from the University of Witwatersrand. Upon completion of her internship and community service years, she stepped away from the medical practice to gain a deeper understanding of life, health, and well-being by studying and practicing yoga, breathwork, and integrative approach to health. She is now practicing as an integrative medical doctor with a particular focus on breathwork for healing, transformation, and empowerment. Today she is here with us. She is not only just going to share some insight as to how stress can affect you, but she will be sharing some awesome breath work kind of techniques to help us manage it more effectively. Thank you so much for taking the time today to join us, Dr. Modi, and we are so delighted to have you here today. You are most welcome to join us at the moment.
I am here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me at this webinar. It's an amazing initiative by SADC, and thank you, Petri, for giving me the opportunity to host this talk. I'm just getting my screen ready. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so before we start, I just invite you all to close your eyes for a moment. Just feel into your body. Take a long, deep breath in, inside out. And another long, deep breath in. Let out a huge exhale. And one last breath. And just noticing how you feel right now. Noticing if there's any shift within you, any shift in your, if there's anything at all. Okay, so today I'm going to speak to you about stress and burnout and how we can become more resilient so that we do not experience the effects of stress and burnout as much as we do in our lives. Okay, so is this you? Is this how you feel? What is stress to you? Just think about it for a moment. What is stress to you? How do you experience stress in your life? What shows up in your emotions, in your physical symptoms? How do you know that you're stressed? And how often do you experience this stress? And what do you do to relax? So oftentimes people say things like, you know, they'll go and they'll watch TV or they'll read a book or speak to someone, and it may make you feel some level of relief and pleasure in doing those activities, but it's very different to actual relaxation. And the art of relaxation has actually been lost by our modern lifestyles. And so today I'm going to explain to you what exactly is stress, what happens in the body when we're stressed, the symptoms that we experience and why we're experiencing it by understanding the cascade of events that happens into our body. It gives us insight into what's going on. And when we have that insight, we're able to take action and empower ourselves to change that response. Then I'm going to speak to you about the energy zone map and tools and techniques to manage your stress. So firstly, what is stress? So stress is not the external event. Stress is what's happening inside of our bodies. So what might be stressful to one person may not be stressful to another person. So it's our individual experience. It's how we react to whatever event is occurring. Okay, so it's this physiological process that occurs in our body, and the extent to which we experience the stress is dependent on our capacity to deal with whatever that situation is. So when we enhance our capacity, when we build our resilience, that same event may not be as stressful as it once was. Okay, so it's when we don't know how to respond to a situation. So stress is normally perceived as this really bad thing, but it's actually not. It's a normal process, and it's an essential process for our body to function adequately. It's there for our survival. And it can also be, stress can also be a productive stress. So, you know, sometimes when we're stressed, we're able to work more efficiently, we're able to focus more, and be more productive. And so the problem is when we're unable to manage the stress, and when it becomes chronic and our body's no longer able to maintain a state of balance. Okay, so getting a bit into the physiology, just so that you understand what's happening, is in our body, we have a system known as the autonomic nervous system. This is an automatic system. So it's not under our control. We don't have to think about it and think about, you know, how it's working and decide when we need to switch it on and when it needs to switch it off. It happens on its own. And it regulates all the systems in our body. Now, this system is divided into the sympathetic nervous system, and Ross this term before, but more likely in the sense of our fight, flight, or freeze, which is our sympathetic, and the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So I'll explain these further. Okay, this is just a diagram just to show you how both systems affect each organ. So you have nerve endings from both systems going to every organ system in our body. So you don't need to worry too much about the details. This is just to show you that. And then, so our sympathetic nervous system. So how our bodies have developed over thousands of years, over millennia, is that when there's a stressful event, if, for example, you know, historically in prehistoric times, if there was a predator which we were exposed to, so our main aim at that point in time is survival. You know, you want to get away from this predator. So that's when our stress response kicks in, our fight, flight, or freeze system. So when we see a lion or a tiger, whatever it is, the system automatically switches on, and we need to mobilize all our resources in order to survive. So this is when all our energy, all our blood flow, all our thinking processes are directed towards survival. So when we're in this sympathetic state, our main focus is survival. When we go into the parasympathetic state, this is what should actually occur naturally once the threat has been averted. So once we've escaped that predator, we should be able to go into this parasympathetic state where all our resources are replenished, where we're now able to recover, to heal from that stressor. So it's a system that's very well evolved and works very efficiently. So just so that you briefly understand where these symptoms of stress are coming from, in the sympathetic state, there's a fast response and a slow response. So the fast response is when we have that adrenaline released. So, you know, when you suddenly hear some bad news or you're startled by something and you just feel that surge of energy in your body. So that's the adrenaline. So that increases your blood pressure, it increases your heart rate, it gets you pumped and ready for action to avert that stressor. Okay, it makes you very aware of your surroundings, and it directs all your body's resources to your muscles, to your heart, and it releases glucose so that you have energy in order to escape. So it affects every organ system in your body so that it's all directed towards escaping or averting that threat. And then the slower response is when you release cortisol in your body. So cortisol also supports that fight or flight mechanism, but it suppresses immune function because the immune system itself uses a lot of energy to keep itself going. And at a point like that, where you have this huge stressor, it's more important to escape the threat than for your immune function to be well nourished and supplied and functioning optimally. So when you're in the state of chronic stress, it affects how well your immune function is able to do its job. But what also happens, so if you've ever heard stories of, you know, a child being trapped in a dangerous situation and this mother having some incredible strength to, you know, lift a car or lift a log or do whatever they need to do to rescue that child. That's the sympathetic nervous system that's in play. And that's when we have our superhuman powers and people can do these amazing feats, so it redirects all our energy resources to that state. So now our parasympathetic nervous system, as I mentioned, it's when that threat is now removed. We're no longer, needing to fight or flee. So now we must recover. So this is when your blood pressure decreases, your muscles relax, your respiratory rate slows down, you're able to absorb more energy through food and digestion, and you're more creative when you're in this state because you're not focused on survival, you're focused on expansion. This is when the body regenerates. So it's a very, very well working system that's developed over a very long time. So stress is not the problem. What the problem becomes is when we're in a state of chronic stress. So when we're unable to access that parasympathetic nervous system and relax. And with our modern lifestyles, this is what we face every day. Because we have this constant bombardment of stressors, whether it's work, relationships, the news, economic, financial situations, even just our devices, like constantly being connected to information, even the constant trigger from the lights of being on technology. So we've lost this ability to relax, and we're in this state of low-grade stress or low-grade fight or flight. And when we stay in that state and our body's unable to keep up, that's when we head towards burnout and illness and disease. So what also happens is when we're in the state of chronic stress, our system adapts to the stress. So we get so used to that adrenaline and cortisol being in our system that we need more and more to stay at that level of functioning. So it's an addiction and you're not getting enough. So then we start looking for stresses in our life so that we can get that next hit, that next adrenaline rush. And when we stay in that, then all our resources get used up. So from this understanding of how the autonomic nervous system works and our parasympathetic and sympathetic, we can see where the symptoms of stress come from. So from your head to your toes, everything is affected by stress. So some examples of physical symptoms can be headaches, because now your focus is very narrow, you're unable to relax. So you have headaches, insomnia, inability to sleep because we have so much of this pent-up energy within us. You get fatigue because you're no longer able to keep up with your demands of the body, and this leads to imbalances in your hormones. You can get hypertension, you can get racing heart. Your breathing becomes really difficult because there's a tightness in your chest and you're unable to relax those muscles and expand your breath. You can get changes in appetite because now blood flow is no longer directed to your digestive system. It's more directed towards your muscles of survival, your organs of survival. So you get changes in appetite, your stomach can be upset, you get irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, bloating, diarrhea, you get ulcers, and in your muscles you get a lot of contractions and unable to just release. And because then our immune system is also suppressed, we're more susceptible to infections and allergies and developing chronic diseases. And then on a mental, emotional, behavioral side, it affects us. We develop anxiety, and then there's the physical symptoms of anxiety. You can have mood swings. You're very easily triggered and reactive, easily having anger outbursts. You lose interest in life, in social interactions, in doing things that once brought you pleasure. You have a loss of confidence. You become indecisive because you can't think from a place of clarity and calm. You're just hyper vigilant all the time, and it makes performing simple tasks a lot more difficult and a lot more challenging. And then we want to overuse stimulants to help us feel better, like caffeine and sugar and alcohol. So it affects every aspect of our being, when we're in this state of stress, and we're unable to connect with ourselves and unable to connect and form positive social relationships with others. So when we're in a state of chronic stress, it leads us down the road to burnout. So now what's the difference between burnout and chronic stress? So here's a energy zone map, just to show you the different phases that people can be in. So when you're in either of these stages, it's not to say that you could be in any of these throughout any point of the day. It's not that you're stuck in one. You may feel in the danger zone at some point in the day, and later in the day you go into the optimum zone, or you may be in one zone for a while. It's very much mobile where you're at. So it's when you get to understand your body and how you work, and more self-aware, you're able to see where you may be and how to get out of that zone. So just looking at this, maybe each of you can just quickly look through the points and decide for yourself what zone you may be in. Okay, so optimum zone, it's when we're functioning from a place of healthy energy, where we feel energized and refreshed, and when we sleep, we're well rested. When we wake up in the morning, we feel motivated, we feel strong and resilient, and our body is functioning well, whether it's digestion or our social interactions, everything is in a calm state, in a state of harmony. Okay, so we have a well-rounded approach to life. So danger zone, which is probably a zone which many people are in, is when you're, adrenalized for a long time and your cortisol levels start to rise. So that's when you start having all these disturbances in your mind-body system, and where all the symptoms that we just discussed start showing up. And then people can stay in the zone also for a long time, but the tipping point is when there's usually some kind of trigger, something that happens in your life that just sort of tips you over, and you go into this sort of like you're crashing out now. So it's when your body can no longer keep up with that heightened level of functioning, and it just drops. Everything just drops. So you're always fatigued. The sleep is very disruptive. You don't feel well rested. You can't think clearly. You have like a loss of memory and focus, and your adrenal glands, which are supplying these hormones of adrenaline and cortisol, can no longer keep up. That's when you get to a point where you feel depressed and you're unable to motivate yourself, and you can't get out of bed, and you just feel disconnected from life and yourself and everything around you. And it's difficult to connect with people, and you usually self-isolate and often find you have a loss of meaning in life. So it's looking at it through the whole mind-body connection, and how it impacts every aspect of our being. And then developing systems where we can, touching on compassion fatigue, which Kelly also mentioned, it's very common in industries such as NGOs, healthcare, first responders, and it's from being overwhelmed by exposure to other people's trauma and suffering. So it's different to burnout in terms of burnout is about a lot of responsibilities and work and pressures, versus compassion fatigue is when you're showing empathy and trying to help people and unable to keep up with that. And you get to a point where almost as though you're doing it, but you don't even care anymore. You can't give anymore, because when your cup is empty, you have nothing left to give. And that's where self-care becomes so important. And so the symptoms of compassion fatigue and burnout can both be very similar. And even in terms of managing and what we do to manage our stress and burnout and compassion fatigue, we're both very, very similar. So in terms of an approach to managing our health and our well-being and our stress, so as with everything, we always need to have a holistic approach. The holistic is, managing mind, body, spirit connection, because we're a whole being. We're not just, our physical symptoms. So what does it mean to have a healthy lifestyle? So it's the basics that have been repeated time and time again, but it's also very difficult to maintain. So things like eating healthy foods, nutritious foods, and avoiding processed foods, because this helps our body build a good energy source and supply for us to function and to manage our needs of the day. Keeping well hydrated, and this is more, drinking water or filtered water, not cold drinks and very sugary drinks. And then sometimes taking supplements, because our food doesn't have enough nutrients these days, even if you're eating a range of fruits and vegetables. So taking just a daily supplementation can also help our body just to keep up with its demands. And then purposeful movement or exercise. So purposeful movement is, instead of, like, oftentimes we're desk bound and we sit at the desk every day and we forget to move. And if we're moving, it's just to pick up our cup of coffee, and it's not intentional movement. So just taking time throughout the day to make sure you stand up and you walk around, or you do a few stretches and then you sit down and go back to work. So just intentionally creating small movements in your body throughout the day. And the other factors that influence our lifestyle, it's environment. So are you living in an environment that's very polluted, or what's the work culture that you're living in, that you're working in? What kind of people are you interacting with? Are they bringing positive, uplifting energy to your life, or, is it a toxic relationships? And then our exposure to information and media. So, we often get overwhelmed by everything that's going on in the world, and this notifications and updates of everything. And it's good to actually just take a break from that and say, I'm going to check the news maybe for an hour every day, or check my emails once a day, so that it's not this constant triggering and this constant stimulus that's triggering that sympathetic state. And then good sleep hygiene. It's important to try and sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. It just helps the body train itself to know when it needs to go to sleep and when it needs to wake up. And it improves your quality of sleep. And then, also decreasing your exposure to technology for an hour or two before bed, so that you're not triggered and alert and awake while you're trying to go to sleep. And things like practicing mindfulness, expressing emotions, connecting with people, community, a supportive community is very important to maintain a good life. Spending time in nature and, connecting to some sort of higher belief system. It also helps us, it makes us feel supported. So we want to move from that state to that state through various practices. And now I'm just going to explain a few practices that we can use to access this parasympathetic nervous system. So the vagus nerve, not important to remember, but it's this nerve that comes out of the brain and it travels down through the body, as you can see in the picture, and there's branches that go to every organ system in the body. So when we're able to activate this vagus nerve, when we can stimulate it, we're able to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which gets us into a state of relaxation. So these are some examples. We have breathing, cold showers, gargling. So it's like deep gargling here, which stimulates a branch of the vagus nerve. Yawning, sighing, humming, meditation, chanting, prayer, exercise, yoga, expressing gratitude, spending time in nature, and being creative, doing things that stimulate your creative juices. So whether it's painting or writing or anything that gets you into that creative state also helps access your parasympathetic nervous system. So today I'm going to focus on breathing because that's my interest, and it's such an amazing way to access your autonomic nervous system, because your breath is always there with you. It's right under your nose. It's available at all times, and you can use it throughout your day in a subtle way. And if you have your own private space, you can do more techniques that you may not want to do in front of others. So the breath is this bridge between our mind and our body. It's our access point into that nervous system. And when we learn to manage our breath, we're able to manage our mental and our emotional state. Because what we've learned and what's been known for thousands of years is that our mental and our emotional and our physical state reflects in the pattern of our breathing. And when we change that pattern, we're able to change that mental and emotional state that we're in. So I'm going to do a quick breath awareness practice with you now. Okay, so this is really just becoming aware of our breath. Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes once again. And put your palms over your knees, facing upwards. And just noticing your breath, just becoming aware of it. Are you breathing through your nose or through your mouth? Does it feel easy and light as you breathe? Or is there resistance? Does it feel heavy? And following that breath as it enters your nose, noticing the coolness of the air, and following it, tracing it. It goes through the back of your throat and down into your chest. Where do you feel the movement the most? Is it in your chest, in your upper chest, or your abdomen? Where does that breath go? Is it free? Is it easy? Does it feel easy to breathe? Or is there tightness? Is it easier to breathe on the inhale or the exhale? And when you exhale, can you notice the warmth of the air as it passes through your nose? The change in direction of the air. The sound as you breathe in and out. And now turn your palms to face downwards. And notice if there are any changes in your breathing pattern. Does it feel different? Now slowly, gently bringing yourself back. You can open your eyes when you're ready. So there is such a thing as optimal breathing, which often is overlooked in health today, where we don't really focus on how people breathe. And because of our lifestyles, our breathing pattern has changed because of our modern industrialized lifestyles. So you'll find that a lot of people breathe from their chest and their upper chest. And what this does is, when we're in a state of stress, like if you think of somebody who's very stressed out, or you think of someone who, or when you were last angry, and you think of how you're breathing very high up. You're almost huffing and puffing. So that, just think of an angry person, and that's how they breathe. It's very heavy, very intense, and very high up in the body. And so when we're in a state of stress, that's how we breathe. And we may also breathe through our mouth. So, and that actually puts us in this cycle, because the stress causes us to breathe that way. And when we breathe that way, we become more stressed. And then we get caught in that cycle of staying in the loop of stress, because, it's stressful event, change breathing pattern, more stress in the body. So actually the optimal way to breathe is through our nose. And that would be throughout any activity that you're doing. Obviously, if you're swimming, or if you're doing a particular breathing practice that requires you to use your mouth, then you breathe through your mouth. But ideally, in our daily life, we should be breathing through our nose all the time. Our nose is designed to take in air. Our nose is designed to purify the air, to humidify it, to warm it before it goes into our organ systems, before it goes into our lungs. So that's number one. It also slows down the rate at which we're taking in air, which calms us, as opposed to mouth breathing. It's stress inducing. And then diaphragmatic breathing. So that's belly breathing. So a lot of people are breathing high up in the chest, but ideally where you should be breathing from is, your abdomen. So when you inhale, your stomach should be going out. And when you exhale, your stomach goes in, which is the reverse of what we've become accustomed to. So if you notice in like little babies, when they're born, you see how their whole abdomen also moves when they breathe. So as a result of our lifestyle, we've become more chest breathing. So it's a practice that takes time. So even if you're lying down, you put a book or something on your belly and just practice. As you inhale, you push your belly out. And as you exhale, your stomach goes in. And what this does is it also stimulates that vagus nerve to help us access our parasympathetic state. And you can play with it and practice on your own if you purposefully chest breathe, and then you purposefully belly breathe, and notice the difference in how you feel when you're doing it. Okay, and then the normal breathing pattern is you inhale, you exhale, and then there's a short pause before the next inhale. So when we're stressed, you'll notice that there's no pause. It's just, that's stressful breathing. So slowly introducing that pause into your natural breath will also help induce a more restful state. So like a triangle shaped breathing pattern. Okay, and then we have techniques to help us to enter different energetic states. So breathing for balance, this is, activating both your sympathetic and your parasympathetic state so that you're awake and alert, but also calm. So it's a very good techniques to use in your daily living. So when you need to be at work and when you need to be doing something so that you're calm, but you're able to focus. So I'm going to show you 2 breaths for balance. The first one is called a coherent breath. It's a very simple technique, as most of them are. So you inhale for 5 seconds and you exhale for 5 seconds, both through your nose, ideally once through your belly as well, but I know it takes some time to train yourself to breathe that way. And so we can practice that and show it to you. So you can keep your eyes open or closed if you want. You can put one hand on your chest and one hand on your abdomen. And I'll count with you. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can keep going if you'd like. So an ideal way to practice this technique, which I've written here, 3, 6, 5. So you can do it 3 times a day, 6 breaths per minute. So that's the 5-second inhale and 5-second exhale, which will get you to 6 breaths a minute. And then for 5 minutes at a time. So this you can do, in the morning, when you're at work, in the afternoon, in the evening again. And it's a very easy to do and safe technique. You can even do it, when you're in the car or in the bus or walking somewhere or when you're on your lunch break. It's very easy to do. No one will even know that you're counting your breaths. And it just brings you back to state of balance. And another breath for balance is box breathing. So also helps relieve that anxiety and create a calmness within you by balancing the 2 systems. But it may be challenging for some people because you hold your breath in between and it might trigger some emotion. So you just have to see, what works with you for you and what you feel comfortable with. So the box breathing is you inhale for a count, example 4, and then you hold the breath for a count of 4. You exhale for 4 and you hold for 4. So you can start with any count, depending on your capacity, whether you start with a count of 2 or 3, and you can build it up as you go, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever works for you. So I'm going to start with a count of 3 and then move it into a count of 4. Okay, so again, you can close your eyes and sit comfortably. And become aware of your breathing. And exhale. And inhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And this also, you can do it for a few minutes at a time, whenever you need to. Okay, and then we're going to move on to breathing for relaxation. So a nice thing to do throughout the day, although it's maybe frowned upon by society, is yawning. So yawning actually and when they yawn, they stretch. They really just open up their whole bodies. It's not like a hidden yawn, which we're taught to do. And it's very good for us to just re-energize ourselves. So when you yawn, depending where you are, you yawn fully and freely. So it's like, stretch your body, move all your muscles. And just notice how that feels, how you just feel so much more relaxed immediately, more alert, and just in a better mind space already. So sighing does that too. So don't sigh to your boss or your colleagues when they're speaking to you, but throughout the day, if you just need to sigh, you just exaggerate it a little bit sometimes. Just drop your shoulders as you exhale. And just notice how that feels, all that excess tension dissipating out of your body. And the extended exhale. So this one, we inhale through the nose, and you can exhale either through the nose or through pursed lips. So like, so extended because, so whatever the count of your inhale, the count of your exhale will be twice that. So if you inhale for 4, you exhale for 8. So we'll do that practice now. I'll start. So again, you can start with whatever count works for you. So you may inhale for 2 and exhale for 4. And as you practice more, you can increase it. So you can close your eyes again. And tune into your breath. We're going to inhale for a count of 3 and exhale for 6. So inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And just noticing how you feel after doing that. Do you feel more relaxed? So this is something that you can do also throughout the day. You can do it at night to help you relax before you want to go to sleep. Or if you're feeling very anxious or very triggered and you just need that release to bring you back down so that you can respond in a more healthy way. And just another fun technique, which is called the humming bee. So it's similar to extended exhale, except this time, when we exhale, we block our ears and cover our eyes and we hum as we let it out, as we let the air out. So like this, for example, so you put your thumbs into your ears and then your fingers just over your face, your second finger covering your eyes, just to keep them closed. And then you inhale and exhale and you hum. And you can exhale for as long as you can. So inhale, exhale. And it's also helpful because, we get that sensory deprivation by blocking out all the sounds and blocking our vision. We can just tune into our bodies and not be so stimulated all the time. So it's a lovely technique to do. Probably not in the office. And then breathing for energizing. So this is accessing that good energy that makes us feel more alive and more motivated to do things. So I'm going to show you 2 techniques to energize. So the first one is a connected breath. So this one we do through our mouth because we want to activate more energy. And mouth breathing activates that. So it's inhale and exhale through your mouth. And it's a circular breath. So there's no pause between the inhale and the exhale. And it goes like this. So it's like you're sucking in air, almost through like a really big straw. And then the exhale is very passive. You just let it go and release. And then we do 20 breaths together. But in that, we have a cycle with the first 4 short and the 5th one is long. So like this, see? So that's our 20 breaths. And you may notice that you feel a little lightheaded after it. You feel a little bit of tingling in your body. So that's the energy that's being activated. So you want to do this technique when you're in a safe space, not when you're driving or, in the shower or somewhere where you may feel lightheaded. Do it when you're in a safe space and you can feel you feel that aliveness, that tingling, that energy that's activating. And it also helps if say you have anxiety or you're feeling really angry and there's just a lot of pent up energy in your body, to release that energy, to mobilize it and get it flowing. It also helps to do that. So you can do this, for example, and then follow it with a relaxation technique in those moments. And the last technique I'm going to show you today is the warrior breath. So this one's a bit fun. It's really nice to use for team building, for help building confidence and if you have a little team meeting before you start your project, it's really nice just to get everyone to get together and do it, just to boost morale, and it makes you feel really good. I'm just gonna unplug because I need to stand up for this. Your breath. Okay, so you're standing with your feet hip width apart and your knees a bit soft. And then I hope you can see me properly. Your knees a bit soft. And then you extend your hands outwards. Open up your fingers, extend it up to above the level of your face. And then when you inhale and exhale through your mouth, so it's ha. And when you exhale, you create fist and you pull it down to the sides of your abdomen. So it's ha, 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 ha. So everyone can stand up and do it with me this time. Okay, you get ready, so we can do 4 short and the 5th one long again. Okay, get ready. Ha, 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 ha. And that is our warrior breath. And I'm sure you're feeling all awake, energized right now. And yeah, so just to tie things up, resilience is when we're able to deal with the stresses that life throws at us a lot more. So by adopting certain lifestyle techniques and certain habits, we're able to create that capacity for us to deal with whatever life throws at us. And experiencing stress and burnout is an opportunity for us to become more conscious of the choices that we make in our daily life and what's contributing to that stress and burnout and what changes we need to make. Yeah, so that's it for me. I'm sorry I ran a bit over time, but if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much for that, Pearl. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking us through some of those awesome techniques. I'm sure we can, not just for ourselves, but for our teams as well, employ some of those. I don't know, let's open the floor to any questions. Are there any questions for us? You can pop them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. Just let us know. We are here. I know we're running over a little time, but we are still here for you. If you are wanting to ask any questions, please do let us know. So I think, let me ask a question, Pearl, just from your experience with working with these breath techniques, what are some of the signs that people can look out for when, basically, when should I know when to use these breathing techniques? When's the best time for me to notice with myself? What kind of signs should I be looking for?
So it comes with developing some level of self-awareness. Like, we need to be in tune with our body. We need to know what's going on with our mind. So as soon as you notice, like maybe you're feeling a bit frazzled, or you're noticing some tension in your body, or you're reacting to someone too much, like, you have to be aware of the signs and have that little bit of self-awareness, because if you don't realize how you're feeling, how do you know when to implement it? So it can be part of a daily routine that you have. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, when I'm feeling this way, I do it. So you make it part of your morning routine, and you can schedule it on your phone. At 8 a.m. I'm going to do this, at 12 p.m. I'm going to do this, at 6 p.m. before I go home, before I enter the house, I'm going to do some techniques to calm myself. So you can do it both ways. Schedule it into your life, and it shouldn't be another activity for you to do. Like I said, while you're traveling, or while you're at the shop standing in a queue, just incorporate it into your life. So you can be part of a routine, or when you have some level of self-awareness, just knowing I'm feeling this way, I need to tune into myself right now and regulate my system.
I can 100% agree with that. Thank you so much for that. I think, what we are always advocating for at NPOwer is maybe just, to focus on yourself, especially within the nonprofit sector. It is so difficult, to fill your cup before you fill the cup of everyone else. Like Kelly was saying, it's oftentimes a passion project that makes us, work and sometimes thrive in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I think integrating self-care into your daily routine is maybe, where the golden spot is. I have Joyce who's asking, what can she do if she falls asleep? what must I do? Should I fall asleep? I think this obviously depends on on where you're doing your breathing. Obviously, if you are doing it, you know, where and when. Obviously, if you're doing it in your bed at night, I don't think that's a big problem. But I do, you know, I don't think you'd be necessarily falling asleep at work. But I think it's honestly, yeah, it can happen. I mean, so I think that honestly, I mean, Priel, you can obviously just jump in on this, but I think it obviously depends on where and when you do it.
So just noticing, like, if by doing just a few minutes of breathing, you're already feeling like you need to fall asleep, that's an indication that your body's telling you that you need more sleep, that's what it needs right now, you know, and that you're sleep deprived. So firstly, just notice that it's an indication from your body. And then obviously, if you're at home and if you're able to take a nap or bedtime and you can go to sleep, then by all means. If you're at work, obviously it's more difficult, but then you can implement some techniques that will, you know, create a state of balance, or the energizing technique to help you get out of that slump so you can be productive for that time. Preferably not turn to stimulants. But, you know, the breathing techniques, you can play with them and you can see, how do I respond to this? What do I need in a particular situation? You know, so, I mean, I've had people fall asleep during breathing sessions.
Yeah,
no
so I think
taken.
Yeah. So I do think, like I said earlier, I think that the main goal is here is to, you know, be connected with yourself and develop a level of self-awareness. And one of the ways that we do that within the mental health sector is, so we do a mental health check-in, whether it's on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever, just with yourself and your team. It's sometimes very valuable in doing that. You know, that's about asking questions. Well, how am I feeling today? Why am I feeling stressed? You know, it's little things like that we can incorporate into our everyday lives. And just, you know, just from what I know is that, you know, breathing techniques are also valuable in that you don't necessarily have to notice when you yourself are stressed, but you can adapt this to, you know, looking at someone else. Like Priel was saying earlier, if someone's going super fast, shallow breathing, you know that they are stressed, that they're going through something. And then you can adapt one of these, you can pull them aside, be like, maybe we should just calm for a second. That's something that you can do, not just for yourself, but for your team. I don't know if there's anyone else that wants to ask a question. Oh, so Latando says, how can I manage being tired at work and having a minor back pain?
Okay. So tired at work, so you need to evaluate what your sleeping habits are like, and, you know, are you getting enough sleep? And prior to sleep, what are you doing? Are you, you know, they say having a glass of wine or alcohol before bed may help you sleep better, but it actually activates your system and you don't actually sleep well, you know, because your body is still processing it. So looking at your sleep habits, and, you know, don't be on any technology before you go to bed, and don't have coffee and tea, and then try to get to bed at the same time, because the sleep is obviously not restorative. So creating a good sleep hygiene is really important. And then, you know, when you're at work, obviously you don't want to keep taking stimulants and caffeine to keep you going. So you can use these techniques, use the energizing technique, you know, to help you access that authentic energy, which can help you keep going throughout the day. But very important is then, you know, like I mentioned, the sleep practice and doing breathing techniques before you go to sleep, so that you have a more restorative sleep.
100%. And like I said, that also falls into, you know, looking after yourself each and every day. One of our board members always says, you know, when it comes to burnouts and these kinds of things, prevention is always better than cure. And these kinds of daily self-care things, mental health check-ins, proper sleep, proper, you know, diet, staying away from too much caffeine, all these things build your kind of self-care routine, and it builds your overall resilience and overall well-being, which all help you to, you know, to combat things like stress. And these are all things that can help you to prevent yourself from becoming chronically stressed. So it's all about keeping in tune with yourself. Obviously, no one recipe fits each and every person. Yeah. It's going to be very individualized to each and every person. But that's something that you feel you and yourself can prioritize for yourself and explore. What works for you may not work for someone else. But if it works for you, we would suggest that you obviously stick to that.
And yeah, like you mentioned, your diet and food is very important. You know, are you having very sugary foods throughout the day and fast foods, which, you know, also make you feel more lethargic and make you want to sleep? And examining what you're eating and how you feel after you eat those meals.
100%. So I think I'm going to wrap up. If there is anyone that wants to ask a question, please email us. We will put all our contact details. I'm going to put a slide up now just for any of the, you know, the points where you can access NPOwer. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, there's an email address, and obviously the very great, awesome website that we've got going. The recording of the session will be available on the NPOwer website by latest early next week. I will chat to Priyal about giving us her slides. If not, then the presentation will definitely be online. So yeah, thank you so much, Priyal, for joining us today. We so appreciate the time that you,
Thank you for having me.
the time that you gave to be here with us today. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to come to be here with us today. Like I always say, please take care of yourselves. Fill your cup before you fill the cup of everyone else. It is so important to look after yourself during this time, and to prioritize your own mental health before you prioritize everybody else's. We know it's difficult, especially working in the nonprofit sector at the moment, but please prioritize yourself, prioritize your own mental health, one day at a time, and hopefully we can all be there for each other. We are here for you. We've got a 24-hour mental health and support helpline. I will share those contact details with you shortly. So if you are needing any help and support, please reach out to us. Reach out via the email address, via the social media platforms, and via the website. We are here for you. Thanks again so much, Priyal. We so appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining once again, and we hope you all have a fantastic day and happy long weekend. Bye, everybody.
Yay. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, guys. Thank you.